Life is complex, so is our mental health. It cannot be understood by diagnosis alone. Our philosophy is treat the person, not the mental illness. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Humanizing Mental Health. I'm Trent Akers.
And I'm Jeremy Alcorn.
Well, today it's going to be a bit of a mystery box episode, at least for me, because Jeremy's not going to tell me what we're going to talk about until we were on the air today with you good people. So as I'm sitting here wondering, it's like, okay, am I going to get a chocolate pie? Am I going to get a dummy prize? Or am I going to get hit by the Kraken?
The Kraken?
The Kraken.
Oh, wow. Take it easy.
Okay. Thank you, Princess Bride.
Yeah.
And if you're playing Humanizing Health Bingo, yes, that is our obligatory reference to the Princess Bride.
Yeah. So, quick, I want to share a story.
Sure.
Just quick before it really we talk about our topic today. And that is, I just had a beautiful experience happen this morning. An individual was talking about some of their different experiences in therapy and just was expressing how much healing they came to in our work together. And at times in which that they would have desired that healing in some of their other experiences with therapy that didn't happen. And they were saying something about, what's their words? You fixed me, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but something very similar to that. And I went, no, like you fixed you. And they're kind of looking at me, well, like what's the difference, here? Like I have been in therapy to different people, and that didn't work very well. But seeing you worked very well. So then, like, what do you mean? I fixed me. And so we had this like moment in which we cried together, because it was beautiful being able to say, when someone climbs Mount Everest, they have Sherpas that guide them, but unless the Sherpa put them on their back and carried them up the mountain, then the person climbed the mountain themselves.
Yeah, and I can really appreciate what you're saying, because I've had similar experiences myself, and it's kind of like, how can I greet that with gratitude, but empower the client at the same time? Yeah, because I think I told you about that one guy that I'd worked with, where he's like, I've been in therapy since I was 10 years old, and you're the first therapist that I've really connected with and really worked with, and this guy is in his mid to late 20s, and it's like, whoa, okay, okay, I've earned my check today, thank you very much.
Right, yeah. And at the same time, recognizing that the people that are climbing Mount Everest would die without their guides.
Absolutely.
So the guide is important, but the guide does not climb the mountain for them.
No, I mean, that really goes back to, like, if you look at the logo from my business, where I really look at myself. For those of you that haven't seen my logo, it's open. Plug for my business, Open Acres Counseling Services. But if you look at the business logo, it's got two people climbing the A, one on the bottom and one on the top, and where the other one is extending out the hand. And the thing is that that's kind of how I view counseling, whereas I'm providing you with that guidance, with that support, but that energy that's actually pushing you up the mountain. Because if you've ever done climbing, like, your arms are important, but really the bulk of it comes from your legs, from pushing up.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that beautiful moment, and so today, I had pitched this idea of technology being toxic. I pitched that, and of course, Trent, you went, well, actually, is it innately toxic? And so I wanted to run past you this idea. In fact, I really wanted to wait, because the metaphor to me is so fascinating. So I want
Thank you, Mr. Burns, as you steeple your fingers.
I did actually steeple my fingers in there.
Mr. Burns and Spock together. Fascinating indeed. Teal'c. Sorry.
So I want you to imagine for a second, as we think about technology, and technology transformation actually has often been represented in our mass media. Like you make this reference to Spock, and that's exactly where I was going. So imagine and look at the technology that had been demonstrated like in the 1960s in the original Star Trek, and how they showed this process or this idea of technology through the advancement of it and the improvements that it makes to our life, which it does.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is the part that I think is where we're at in our world. Let's take this as a bit of a metaphor and a place to have an example. So let's say that you're looking at the transporter from Star Trek, and it's like this wonderful, amazing thing, moves matter from point A to point B by pulling all of its particles apart, putting them all back together in that space.
Yeah, well, I hear you're going in a different direction than sort of the metaphysical argument of, is that the same person alive?
Yeah. I'm not talking about that at all.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make that clear for those of you that maybe try to tune into Philosophy Tube.
Sure,
This is not
sure.
Philosophy Tube.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got that piece of technology, and I'll compare one other as well so that it'll make sense too. Like they also have this technology that it's just this empty space that you press some buttons and say, I want an apple pie. And then there's an apple pie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
And so we have these ideas or these concepts. Now in our world, this is the way it would actually work. In our world, the way it would work is we would have 5,000 companies that were all wanting to cash in on this new technology. And so then each one of them would be framing, grabbing, piecing a portion of what is out there. And it would be like, okay, so we got this teleporter and there's 85 locations that it will move you to. And if you pay a monthly fee, you can go to any of those locations you want. But someone else will also have a transporter, and it goes to some different locations.
Okay, now I'm almost feeling like this is like a cell phone commercial or like an airport commercial.
Yeah, and exactly like the way that you're connecting that back to our technology. So it's like this food development machine that will just instantly create your food has 5,000 things on the list. Oh, but actually something else has a different kind of 5,000 things on its list.
Welcome to Netflix, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. Yeah. Except that it's not just Netflix, it's all of our technologies. I go into, as I of course mentioned before, I work half-time for the Canadian Armed Forces. I go into that office and there's 3 screens in front of me, and I've got an email that is a work email. I have an email that is my own professional email. I have a personal email. I have my cell phone with me in that room. I have 3 monitor screens. I have Microsoft Office, Teams that is running for communication. I have a physical landline in that room that is for communication. And I have a text message that might go off. I have Slack that might go off. I have Messenger that might go off. I have messages that might go off. It is a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you bring that up because, what was it? I was trying to have this, like, my girlfriend and I are distant. She's in Calgary, I'm in Medicine. So for those of you that don't know, that's like 3 hours apart. So most of the time, whenever we connect over the phone or we do a video message. And I remember, I think it was last night or the night before, like we spend at least an hour together, and my watch just keeps dinging off, dinging. And like I love my Apple Watch. I love that it connects me. But it's like at that time, it's also very disconnecting because it's taking my attention and it's wanting to pull it that way. And I'm almost imagining you where your brain is almost like taffy and everybody and all these different things are pulling at you all at once, and it's how can I be mindful and in the moment when I have to have this split attention? Am I wrong?
Well, absolutely. Like the big thing for me is that I have to keep track of all of these things. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to have any, like 3/4 of them I don't even want.
No, and I mean, like, I okay, my one friend makes fun of me one day for this, but I remember speaking of Slack, and because like Slack, as you know, because we're both in the same office together, sometimes it'll ding off. I mean, like some of those messages are important to me, and some of them aren't. And there was one message one time where a colleague had shared a personal goal, which, I mean, like if they were talking to me individually, great, wonderful. I would love to hear that. But it's because of that, like in the moment, because I was inundated with like 10 different messages. It was like, I don't really want to know about your personal goal right now. Like that's not important to me. Why are you sharing this?
Mm-hmm.
And you think
Sure.
about that in terms of like breakdown of human connection and communication, because you're no longer empathetic in the moment, because you like you're just, you don't have the forebrain thought anymore, and your empathy just shuts down.
Sure, absolutely. Like I spend 10 minutes at most on Facebook every day, looking at was there anything I need to respond to. Outside of that, I turn the notifications off because I don't want to track everything.
No,
And I find it poisonous, actually, to constantly be looking and constantly be tracking all of these things.
yeah, and I'm like the one, and I mean, for those of you that are playing Humanizing Mental Health Bingo, I'm actually going to bring up, Gabor Mate and ADHD today, because I mean, if we look at the environment that we live in, I mean, it really is encouraging that ADHD level of inattention and basically flitting from one thing to the other, because that's what we almost need to do.
Yeah, and then you wonder why people see a previous age as golden. Actually, that had its own problems. Is different.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But I do not want to maintain all of this technology and maintain that, like, and it gets to be a spot where it's like, well, but this is your responsibility, this is your requirement.
All right. And to further your Star Trek metaphor, and I'll bring in some research to back this up. But there's a point in Star Trek: The Original Series where Captain Kirk is talking about nuclear weapons, and he said there was a point at which our weapons outpaced our ability to understand them, and we nearly destroyed ourselves. If you look, and I mean, you can analogize that in a lot of ways to technology. If you look at human beings' ability to create, it really takes, they've done studies where it takes about 100 to 200 years for us to actually fully integrate and acclimate to these types of technology. So,
Sure.
I mean,
We're just barely getting into the spot where the car is really a part of who we are.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, and I mean, if you look at that, and look at a lot of the social policies that are now taking place, where people are trying to make more walkable cities, getting away from cars, integrating gyms, because there was a point, and I mean, granted, there are other issues too, when you look at the automobile and how when you went from mass transit to individual transit, how that impacted our society, especially in terms of human beings' connections and sort of the democratization of travel.
Sure.
I mean, now we're finally starting to return to that. So, I mean, in 200 years from now, I mean, when we first start to integrate Facebook or various technologies, what is that going to look like?
It'll be obsolete. That's the thing. Right?
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's also the pace of technology.
Yeah.
That it's, I mean, think about, they now look at Facebook as for old people, and I'm like, whoa, wait.
Yeah, sure.
Facebook, I joined Facebook back in 2007. I mean, granted, I'm going to be 36 next month, but I'm like, that's not that long ago.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that a big part of this conversation is one in which we see that technology creates a simplified process for our life. And I don't believe it does anymore. It does not. It complicates our life vastly. I think part of the reason that it complicates our life so much is what I said at the start, and that is what is driving some of the complexity that's happening for us is that everybody wants your dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get a piece of that, they have to create their own system. Technology, in terms of the biggest growth right now, is in communication. And when you have 1,000 different ways of communicating, it is not simple, and it is not actually helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that that also kind of again harkens back to Star Trek, because if you look at that, like look at the economy of Star Trek, which actually is a really great book if you guys ever get a chance to look that up. When you look at these wonderful pieces of technology, where that came from, it's sort of a very utopian society where there's equal and equitable access to everything, whereas now we live in a consumer society, so we have the ability to develop this, but it's about what is the ethos that's driving behind this. It's not about how can I really better society, but how can I better myself and feed this corporation that I'm creating.
Sure. And in fact, one of the reasons that I look at Facebook every single morning, we have a Facebook page for this podcast, and I'm interested in being able to know how people have related to our podcast, how they're related to our message. And so I check to see if there's someone that is connected in that way. And so here we go. I am integrated or pulled into some things, but then where do I set my boundaries with how I relate to this?
Yeah, and I mean, okay, yeah, we can even bring this back to mental health. Of course, is that because boundary setting is one of the most, I find, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, it's one of the most difficult things for a lot of my clients. What about yours?
Yeah, for sure. And part of that being like, okay, everybody's got a phone on them now.
Mm-hmm.
What if I don't want to be accessible?
Yeah.
And then, but then what is my feeling or sense to how that threatens the relationship I might have with someone else, that I don't want to be accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And so then a family member or a friend is either texting or calling. And at some point in time, then me feeling guilty for how long it had been since I had responded. But why feel guilty for doing what I need to do for myself to be, centered and to be well?
Yeah, well, and I think that's the crux of the argument, and I think sometimes I think we do our best to articulate this because you and I really harken back to the tribe and sort of this more collectivist ideal, but the thing is that the individual still exists within the collective. It's just about modulating that and not making one more important than the other. And how do we do that with this?
Yeah, for sure. Right. Like when you're talking about those boundaries but that's really the reason that I continue to track emails and Slack, and it's simply because I don't want to convey that I don't care or that I'm disinterested to someone else.
Yeah, and and as I hear that, I almost hear, are we even developing an attachment disorder? Are we encouraging a certain attachment style with people where it's almost an anxious attachment because it's like I need to have that feeling of belonging.
Sure. Like I don't want to do something to threaten the connection with some other person, or to leave them in a place in which they feel disrespected. And now it means that when the phone was on the wall and it was just hooked to the wall, if you weren't home, then you didn't answer it because you weren't home.
Mm-hmm.
And no one thought twice about the phone ringing and no one picking it up.
Yeah.
Because I was attempting to connect with this person and they weren't available.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no feeling of anxiety of leaving my home because my phone might ring and I might need to respond to somebody.
Yeah.
But when that dynamic changes and my phone is in my pocket and my email then is in my pocket and my Slack and my Facebook and my Messenger and my messages and, the 2 other email addresses I have and la, 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 la. And then there's that sense that you have no autonomy from your connections.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sorry. The only thing that I can think of right now is my mother trying to get a hold of me. And I'm not saying that I don't want to get a hold of my mother. I always want to be a hold of my mother, but it's like I can't just have a moment of peace and be like, I need to just disconnect, because there is no disconnection. And if you do disconnect, then you're seen as abnormal. Well, why don't you have an email address? Why can't I get a hold of you at every hours of the day? But my question is too, and I'm sure that your consent for service says this, and I've had to make this clear with my clients, is that, I respond to emails generally within business hours. I don't do Facebook requests. Why is it that it's okay to set this up within a professional relationship, but not respect these boundaries overall?
Yeah, sure. Right.
Yeah. And there again, too, you also have the younger generations that have been digital natives that now when they go into professional settings, they don't understand why they can't share where their practicums are or the people that they're working with, because that's just an expectation now.
Sure. And to a certain degree, at least what I've seen, those that have grown up with some of these technologies, actually the social norms that would have developed, with you and I when we were in our physical environments without that technology, face-to-face kind of interactions, there seems to be a set of rules that are developing, and some of the younger people actually seem to be better at respecting the boundary rules within the technology world, better than I do, because it wasn't natural to me.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you were to take a caveman, like I'm not saying that you and I are grunting and beating each other over the head, but yeah, like or if you were to take an individual, or like let's say, I always remember Martin Greenshields, my one history professor, used to say, he used to put a man to sleep. He would wake up 100 years later, and he would understand the world that he lives in. Now, you put a man to sleep for 20 years, you wake him up, and he has no idea about the world that he lives in, because you wouldn't know why to not eat certain things. Or even if you have individuals that come from developing nations, they come into North America in some respects, or into developed nations, and they have a hard time with calorie and food consumption, because they're not used to having an abundance of food, whereas a lot of us will learn to regulate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. And so that big picture that I guess I really wanted to be able to begin to convey was just this aha moment to me when in my mind I could see, I think it was the Star Trek food creator, whatever that
the replicator.
The replicator, yeah. And I went, oh, it would be really amazing and simple, but that's not how it would work.
No.
If we were to have this, we would need to have 10 of them, because we'd be like, oh, I really like this dish. Oh, this one doesn't make it because it's from this company. I guess I have to pay the monthly subscription to this one as well. And this one as well.
The HelloFresh replicator.
And then I realized, that's our problem. We don't have some kind of universals in some of the integration of our technology. But the other issue to that is, if we did, then they would be monopolies. If you look at the history of the phone, when I was a kid, it was long distance to call the 20 miles to the next town. So we lived in a little town. My aunt only lived like a 35-minute drive away, but it was long distance, and it meant that we didn't call them because it was expensive to do so. And just your regular bill, being somewhere around $100 a month, without the ability to call long distance. And so this advancement forward of technology that more and more brought people together. That ability to be able to call someone across the country without incurring any cost was like mind blowing.
Yeah.
But then what came with it was this really big explosion of different methodologies, or different applications and methods of being able to connect, and everyone feeling like I've got to have all of these things. And then life wasn't better. It was actually more meaningful when I could talk to my cousin, once a month, than when it was that I had to follow all of these things and track all of this stuff all of the time.
Yeah, like what I really hear you talking about is responsible expansion. Just because we can do something doesn't necessarily mean we should.
Yeah, and really, how do because I have no ability to influence that. I cannot influence the broader perspective. The capitalistic society that we live in has some advantages in terms of there being creativity and growth, and the competition keeps prices lower, and all of those things. There's massive advantages. And at the same time, it also pushes things to a place in which now I have all of this obligation or responsibility that I'm supposed to follow through with all of these means of communication.
Yeah.
And it actually is poison.
Yeah, well, and there again too, I think what we're talking about, and I almost wonder if this would be valuable for our listeners to ask themselves. And I'm gonna, one thing that you have to ask yourself is that what is the message I'm receiving? What is the life that I want to live? And how does that really match up, and where can I buy in and where can I not? I think of one thing I use with my clients is the diagram of the feared self, and then the ideal self, and like in the middle between that is the actual self. And the thing is that when you get the message of the ideal self, what is that ideal self? Is that coming from you, or is that coming from society? And how can you recognize that? And what steps can you take to either choose to or not to be a part of that?
Like, it comes down to me. How do I simplify things? Like, I had this moment in which I realized, wow, maybe I understand Gollum a little bit better. Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, maybe I understand him a little bit better. There's that scene where he's caught the rabbits, and he brings them, and Sam is like skinning them and cooking them into a stew. And I couldn't help but understand what he meant when he goes, when he says, "Give it to me, raw and wriggling. You keep the nasty chips."
My good Lord, I have to say this. I've heard your Gollum voice, but it's something about hearing it on the podcast. I'm like, oh wow, Andy Serkis. Like, if you need a voice double for Gollum, we have Jeremy Alcorn. You can look us up in the contact info.
Yeah, it's like, man, I get it. You just want a simple life.
Yeah, just give me what I want.
Mm-hmm. Like, and simplify it. Why are we doing all this stuff? It's just, it's way too complicated.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But I also, like, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, because as I hear that, and I almost wonder, is this almost a similar narrative of every generation as they age?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like I'm getting old. Like, my dad's like, man, stupid VCR. How do you make this thing record when you want it to record? It never does it right for me, and that old thing. And it's like, well, and I feel like that's where I am in my life too. You're right.
Yeah. So how does that feel, man?
Yeah. And the weird thing is, I think it's different.
Tell me in what way it's different.
Yeah. Like, I see the similarity, but I think it's different. I think it's different in that like you said, the evolution of change has been so intense and so fast. I think one of the big pushes around this is actually the pandemic, because in the pandemic we needed to be able to connect in a different way, and the proliferation of ways of connecting in response to that also pulled a whole bunch of other things together, like the idea of Zoom and all of the other video conferencing devices and Microsoft Teams and it needed to happen for a time period, but the fact that there's 3,000 different ways to do this is a problem.
Absolutely. And it's also asking yourself, when do we need to use it? Like one of the things, like, and you bring up Microsoft Teams. I sit on a board here for the city of Medicine. It's the working group on accessibility and inclusion, and I really enjoy being part of that group and being able to impact the community. And when we went into the pandemic, because we used to go down to City Hall, we would all get together for that hour and a half, and we'd meet, and it was like, it wasn't just about like improving the community, but it was all about like people getting together and like being in that boardroom, because it's people with disabilities sharing our common experiences and building our community. Sure, we have to do that now over Zoom, but it's like the connection is different. And with some of the new individuals, like we'll meet in person, and you get that moment of, oh wow, this is what you're actually like in person, because I can feel the resonance with you. And it's like, yes, I'll say it's easier because I can just sit here in my office rather than go and walk right now the couple blocks down to City Hall. But it's like, sure, I don't have to go in the inclement weather, but I'd almost want to. I'd be willing to do that just to have that sense of community again.
Yeah, absolutely. And to give a little bit of a example of an organization that seems to understand some of this. When I worked for Alberta Health Services, there were like so many emails every single day, a whole bunch of them, and a bunch of information that I didn't care about. A bunch of it that was absolutely irrelevant. They would be sent to the whole organization, and it had to do with something that had nothing to do with me. So this particular office is short-manned. Why do I care? It doesn't affect me. But you compare that when I'm working for the military now. This isn't going to necessarily be everyone's experience, but when I look at the number of emails that come, there are very, very few that are general. Very, very few. And everything that is sent is actually relevant to me.
It's purposeful.
Yeah, for sure, right? And so there's some kind of clarity that has happened in that environment. In fact, I remember talking to, as I was walking around the base getting to know people, I was talking to one of the commanders of one of the units, and he was saying one of the things we're working on is to really make sure that we're not email bombing all the time, that we're not just sending a bunch of emails to everybody, that it's like, hey, if there's something that you've got that you understand is happening, then have a conversation with that person. Don't send it to everybody, or send the email just to that person.
Wow. Like, I'm sorry. I just, well, and granted, I shared with you like those few resources like that were developed by the U.S. military for mindfulness and stuff like that. I never thought that I would look at a military and say that is like institutionalized mindfulness right there.
And that is, I think, a good example of being able to go, how is it that boundaries begin to set, or a culture begins to change, and a recognition of the amount of energy that is being taken away from people based on communication that is happening, and the communication that is connecting them to a screen, not to a person.
Yeah, like I almost look at that like it's almost like a radio channel, like rather than everybody being on the same channel and you've got a radio on your belt and it's going off all at the same time. It's like everybody is on their own specific channel, and how much easier is that to understand and to really put your energy towards, so then you're not wanting to turn away from that email. It's like, if they're emailing me, it's important.
And so then what I did in Alberta Health Services was I just didn't even read a whole bunch of stuff. I just deleted it. And it was funny because there's times that I would miss something that was important. But there's also times in which someone would say to me something like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, oh, well, it was in this email. And the attitude that would come from them is, you need to remain informed. Why are you not paying attention to all of the emails? And it comes down to values. It's like, that's what they value. They value this idea that you need to be aware of everything. And I don't think that is without merit. Having an awareness around you is important. But for me, it was like, actually, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. What you drinking the Kool-Aid for? You don't need to be aware of all that stuff. All that's doing is you're taking on a whole bunch of things that you don't need to.
Well, and there again, too, how does that impact your window of tolerance and your allostatic load for dealing with your clients?
Yeah, because it would actually make me resentful. If I had to read all of that stuff, I would be resentful. I would not come into a session feeling good and regulated. I would come in with all of this garbage in the world that I don't need to worry about.
Yeah, because I'm imagining like let's say your first appointment is at 9 a.m. and it's like, okay, I have to be here an hour ahead of time
just to read the stupid emails.
And for me, I usually come in an hour before my clients because I like to set up my room. I like to have it all good to go. For me, I have a little sip of coffee. I connect with a few people because I need to have my nervous system regulated so I can regulate somebody else's.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think one of the big messages coming away from today is being able to go, how is it that we relate in a different way? Not from a position, our last conversation with Alyssa was about phone addiction, about us being drawn to the phone. This one is a bit of an opposite one. This is one in which it's like, actually, I have this resentment for my phone. I have this visceral feeling of dislike for technology and for the stupid bits and pieces that make me concentrate on a bunch of things I don't want to. And it's like, okay, I have now input my password, and why do I need a secondary step of a text message to my phone? And then all of these layers upon layers of things that I have to continue to track. And so this conversation, I think, is a little bit different. That it's like, how do I fit into this world where I don't miss important pieces of communication, but I do not let it occupy my life?
Yeah, it's being purposeful with technology.
And I think that's actually the very... before we started this conversation, and I said before we pushed play, and I said, Trent, actually, I don't want to do this now. I want to do it live. I think that was the kind of theme that was already beginning to develop. Was you're like, we need to have a conversation that is about a purposeful use of technology.
Absolutely. And I want to put that out to our listeners, like, as you're listening here today, like wherever it may be, or whatever day is, how can you create a more purposeful relationship with technology and with yourself, like in everything that you do? Like whether it be, checking your Facebook, or even being purposeful in terms of brushing your teeth. Because if we have purposeful action in everything, then we can have clarity with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think that's a perfect place to pull this together. If anyone does have reflective thoughts, If you could please post those on our Facebook page, which is funny enough, talking about tracking things.
Yeah.
But as I say, I do have boundaries around that, and I do check it every morning. So if you want to post something like that, we would be fascinated to hear your thoughts. And also, we would potentially, if at all possible, link them back into a later episode where we would make a comment on something that you might have said.
Absolutely. And on that note, I'm Trent Akers.
And I'm Jeremy Alcorn.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that this message has been as meaningful to you as it has been to us. If you're looking for help, you can find us on Facebook at Humanizing Mental Health.